Morning, everyone. I have 10 o'clock according to my cell phone here, which is more accurate than the thing on the wall. Welcome, everyone, to the Senate Education Committee. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Senator Lang, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, this is our executive session, and we will talk about the three bills that we have before us. The first bill we need to discuss is House Bill 367, relative to eligibility of students in the Education Freedom Account program.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Lang.
I move OTP on 367.
I'll second.
OTP on 367, seconded by Senator Gendro. Any discussion? Senator Prentice.
Thank you, Senator Ward. So I won't be supporting the out-of-pass motion. We consistently on the education freedom accounts, the legislation as well as the current program do not have accountabilities in place. We are overspent this year. We're projected to be overspent next year without answers related to eligibility. We heard people come through that said they're currently eligible for, as they came into 300, and they may not be eligible by that number now, but they're in the program and nobody is checking to see whether they should continue to be eligible for these funds like we do with any other place where we put public money into grants, into programs. These are dollars that we're responsible for, and I am largely, sympathetic and have heard the cries of the parents that have, concerns and that have found what they believe, what they know for their children, not believe what they know for their children may be a better fit, but letting this continue to run unchecked, we have a responsibility and an opportunity here to put those guardrails in place. And then, we can continue to move forward, but I'm not going to support anything that expands any programs related to this until that's done. And I know you and I are both on the Education Freedom Accounts Oversight Committee, and that we've had some difficulty getting off the ground with changes in senators and in staffing, but we've got to get that done and answer these questions that are pending from the public. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Senator Fenton.
I just want to echo my colleagues' words that I cannot support this. OTP, this is a tremendous amount of money we're talking about, and at a point where public schools are so starved for funding, and we're talking about expanding a program to go to private institutions, I just can't, morally or ethically support this one. Yesterday we had a teacher shortage commission, and we're talking about ways to help retain and pay teachers more, and yet we're looking at spending more money to private schools. I just don't think it's right, and we really need to focus on protecting and providing funding for our public education system. So that's why I'll not be supporting this. Thank you.
I'm looking at this as a modest increase in the eligibility. As we all know, we have pretty hard inflation going on. So whatever income level that qualified before is going to be very inadequate because everything is costing much more money. And even if you were okay last time, you're not going to be okay now with the circumstances that we have with the current inflation. Senator Prentice?
Thank you, Senator Ward. And I hear you. And but I just want to push back ever so slightly and say, you may be right, but what do we really know? Because we really don't have the data. So, we know that, there's been inflation and the costs are changing, but we don't know anything about this eligibility on a long-term basis. So we're going to adjust a number without having any true story on the 300, and again, allow this number to continue to grow. So I do hear what you're saying, but I just want to push back and say, why can't we put accountability provisions in place? Why can't we study it from that or move from that base rather than we're just going to raise it because we know that there's been inflation. So people may or may not be eligible now that were or were not in the past. It doesn't, I think we've got to come down at some point as a Senate on this and hold our feet to the fire, the feet to the fire on these public dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Lang?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I look at this bill a couple of ways. I don't want to hold any child to a zip code in a school. I think that parents have the right to put their children into the school that best suits every unique child. And what we're really talking about is I also look at this as a food and shelter bill. So again, monies that are assigned to these low income families, let's be clear who we're talking about benefiting here, low income families. That by freeing up revenue by paying for schools for them, that they may be paying out of pocket now at 300%, but they're getting the best education for their child, is that we will be freeing up between 300 and 350, those same families that are low income, and gives them more revenue in their household with things like food and shelter. And so I wholly support this bill. I think that the idea that it helps families that are in low income bracket have same opportunities that people who are in the high income bracket is just the right thing to do for all New Hampshire citizens. So I'm going to wholeheartedly support this bill.
Thank you, Senator Lang. Any other comments?
One
Senator
more.
Fenton?
Sorry. So if we're Senator Lang, I appreciate your comments, but if we're looking at it from a food and shelter bill, we heard a bill about providing free school lunches for children, and that was essentially raising the same cap for lunches. And if that's what we're worried about, let's focus on lunches. Let's not focus on private institutions and private schools. I think HB 367 was the income eligibility from 90,000 to 105,000, and the median income in the state for a household of 4 was 88,000. So if our focus here is food and shelter, let's focus on food and shelter, not private institutions receiving this money.
Well, this is not the bill, so we can't do that. So that's all right. Senator Fenton?
It may not be the bill, but it is the argument Senator Lang has raised, and I think that there's merit in Senator Fenton's comments. I mean, I understand what you're saying, Senator Lang, and I'm not trying to put my thumb on families that can't afford these programs without this. But at the same time, we have 167,357 students in public schools right now. And we're spending a lot of our time talking about a really small percentage and are unwilling to put any accountability in place. I want to help those families. So if we're able to raise the cap on free and reduced, on lunches and on breakfasts, and we're talking about food and shelter, I think that Senator Fenton has made that argument. So we could put our efforts in there. You put accountability in place, I think we could have a really reasonable discussion about this.
Well, we have accountability in place. Unfortunately, what happened last year with people coming off that committee, nothing was done. But we have reconstituted and we will meet. And I think at that point, I just don't think that we can wait for a report from the oversight committee to help the families who right now need the money for the kids. Yes, you may.
Yeah, I thank you,
Yes.
Senator Ward. I understand the amount of time that it's going to take, but there are simple things that we could have done this year. And although I didn't agree with the entirety of the bill, hold on. My mother has a doctor's appointment this morning. My brother's driving her, so everybody's calling. We had the opportunity to put in place legislation that would have checked eligibility for families in the program, just like we do for Medicaid, like we do for TANF, like we do for SNAP. We rejected that not only this year, but we rejected that last year. Now, I have concerns about making kids go to school for a year in the public school system and then, allowing them to go back, say now you can go and homeschool, or taking kids out of school. I had folks in my district reach out to me and say, my children, I've already taken them out of public school, I'm homeschooling them, and now you want me to pull them back? I'm fine setting that aside and didn't agree with that part of the bill. But why is it's not just the education freedom, it's not just the oversight committee, it's pieces of legislation like that are really, simple looks at something that we do for everybody else. And we're not doing it here. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none. Okay, let's take a vote on O2P. How many are in favor of O to pass?
Aye.
And aye. So that's 3, and we have 2. No. So 3-2 for 367. Who wants to take it out?
I'll take it.
Senator Lang will take it out. Thank you. 446 has to do with informing parents of their, clarifies the responsibility of a scholarship organization under the Education Freedom Account Program for explaining rights under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. I'd like to have a motion on the bill. That's 446.
Madam Chair, if I may, this is the technical correction that
Yes.
was necessary, so I'll move OTP.
I have a second for OTP. Senator Prentice, seconded. Discussion? Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, are you ready to vote? All those in favor of O2P on House Bill 446?
Aye.
Aye. That's 5-0. You want to put it on consent?
Move consent?
Second.
All those in favor of consent?
Aye.
Aye. That's 5-0. And Prentice, you want to take it out?
You bet. Yeah. Senator Ward, I can stand in.
Thank you. Now we have House Bill 464. That essentially is including all kinds of groups. The bill expands the definition of who is an eligible student qualifying under the Education Freedom Accounts Program. Senator Prentice,
I move ITL.
do I have a second for ITL? Senator Fenton,
I'm happy to speak to my motion.
any discussion?
Yeah, yeah.
Senator Prentice?
I'm just going to, I mean, I appreciate the sponsor's efforts, and I thought that what she brought to us in committee was very helpful in understanding the intent here, but I'm just going to pull just one like sentence out of the fiscal note that says, this bill will likely result in an indeterminable number of new students accessing the program. So as I said earlier, without checks and balances, and accountability, which is in my mind, accountability in place, we went from saying, okay, we're going to go to 300 to 350, and this is, opens the door even wider. And under the 300 to 350, there's some idea of what this could cost us. Here, I think by opening the door full scale, then we are just, we're clearing the train tracks and just letting this take off. Again, without any accountability. That's my opinion. That's why I'll continue to advocate for accountability and not growing this program. Thank you. Until we have that in place.
Any other comments? I am with ITL. I just look upon this thing as we have income requirements for all the other things and none for this one. So, I've looked it over and I've thought about it. And yes, there are a lot of kids who can benefit from being involved, but not having an income cap, not having to fill out anything, just said, okay, if you're a military child, if you're this kind of a child, you can go without any further questions. So,
Madam Chair.
yes, Senator Lang.
So I think there's some merit to this bill. However, I think as written, again, without the income caps, there's some problems with it, and that this could blow away the education trust fund down to zero. So I think there's some concern about what that might look like in the fiscal implication of this bill. So while I would have rather have a re-refer so we could have worked on it, I'll end up supporting the ITL.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of ITL?
Aye.
Aye. That's
Move
Aye.
consent?
0. Consent,
Second.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Senator Fenton, do you want to take it out?
Sure.
that concludes our executive session on House bills.
Move to leave executive session.
Second, to get out of session? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Session is closed. Thank you all for coming.
We're all done for the year then, aren't we?
Oh, there's something else.
Yeah. What's that?